Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Studio 8.1, episode 67, with me, Jarvis Todd, and the publisher of all things Telemedia, Mr. Paul Skeldon. Thank you, Paul. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too, mate. How are you?
Not bad, thank you. We are going to be talking about, in the next 20 minutes, dating and deep fakes, payments and phishing, and how Telemedia is getting even more secure. So, without further ado, let's do topic one. So let's talk about dating, specifically better dating flows and how to beat those deep fakes. And this has stemmed from some PR that we got from our friends at MCP Insights, mentioned last week. And they have teamed up with the Online Dating and Discovery Association, ODA, and they've developed MCP Date Scan, which is a new tool to test the flows and provide deep marketing insights and competitor analysis or intelligence within the online dating sector. So, Paul, interesting to see dating back on the VAS agenda.
Absolutely. That's why I flagged this up. I mean, essentially, it's a product launch and a good one from our friends at MCP Insight. They've taken, I think, a lot of the sort of work they've done at looking at compliance and the sort of flow of services in other realms of MVAS and have done a specific sort of look at dating. It's not actually released yet. It's still in the testing phase, but it's going to be released shortly, I understand. And yeah, it's I think it's just interesting to sort of bring back that dating is with us still, because for a while it was a big service in telemedia, and it's sort of got kind of I guess sort of taken off into the mainstream by all those sort of companies like eHarmony and those sorts of things, where it became very, very big business. But seemingly it's back in all markets, not just sort of developed ones, but in the developing ones as well, as a sort of more of a telemedia MVAS service. And I think it's very timely that MCP are working with ODA, as you say, to develop a tool that helps those people wanting to run those kind of value added services around dating and run dating services themselves. How well they work, where there are potential sort of pitfalls and scams, what their competitors are doing, and all that kind of deep market information intelligence. So, not launched yet, but coming soon. Be really interested to see it in action, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to the people at MCP in the coming weeks to get a bit more detail about that. So, yeah, an interesting little story. It also coincides with another story we sort of touched on a couple of weeks ago on our website. Links will appear below. Looking at how there's a sort of growing amount of scams and frauds in dating, with things like, which I love the name, it's called Love GPT,
Hmm.
which is a sort of chat GPT thing, which is sort of starting to create fake profiles and things. So I think it's quite timely that this tool has arrived for not just assessing how well your dating service might work, but I think also flagging up where some of the flaws and frauds might be.
But this is referencing a recent study, isn't it, by Delve AI,
That's
uh,
right. Yeah.
who claimed that romance fraud took 60, nearly 61 million victims or attacked
Pounds in, yeah, 60 million pounds worth of money from victims
in,
worldwide.
sorry, in 2023. This is
Yeah.
absolutely scandalous. Um, and the total losses for the year, the previous 12 months are up by 33%. So this is obviously a target market for the bad actors,
Mm,
which is obviously a shame. However, as you rightly point out, nice to see dating back in the realms of VAS. I mean, we've started to see the likes of Dating Kings come back to World Telemedia. And of
mm,
course, traditionally, when the telemedia sector was pretty much locked into premium rate billing and DCB, the model didn't really fit with the dating industry, I don't think, in terms of, certainly not in terms of long-term payments, because the numbers were just, just didn't really work. But I think now that the telemedia industry is embracing the whole range of alternative payment mechanisms, certainly dating in World Telemedia and Telemedia, in general, sit side by side, I think, perfectly. Talk a little bit about the second part of the story, which is the way that some very interesting research is coming about to actually help combat these deep fake images and ID frauds.
Well, yes, I'll sort of link these two together because there's a sort of this problem with well, dating's becoming big business. There's problems with sort of fraud, particularly sort of text-based fraud, people writing erroneous sort of profiles and things using Love GPT. But separately, there's another study that has come out from Portsmouth University's Artificial Intelligence and Data Science Research Centre, and they're looking at deep fake imagery. And seemingly, sort of AI has now got so good that it's creating these sort of deep fake images, deep fake videos of people. And this is, not just in dating. This is becoming rapidly a really big problem everywhere because we've sort of moved in some way from passwords and all that kind of thing towards biometrics and facial recognition and all that. But if you're able to create a fake person and create a fake ID around that fake face, you can create all these fakes.
Yeah.
And I think sort of it ties in nicely with what MCP are doing with dating, in that, of course, we're going to see fake profiles, and those profiles on dating sites are going to be used for scamming people. I mean, this is where the real problem lies. You create a fake, not just a fake profile, but a whole fake person with fake photos and fake videos. You can create fake the whole thing, and
Yeah.
that's a nightmare for luring people in and parting them from their money and breaking their hearts, I
Yeah.
imagine.
That's fine.
And so the guys at Portsmouth University are working on a solution called Deep Guard, which uses their own proprietary AI to try and spot these fake images. And the story goes into more detail as to how that all works, with the sort of how it looks at sort of certain points in images, so you can see when they've been manipulated and created. But I think these two stories together show that we're having to use AI really sort of deeply to monitor and make sure that even sort of something as relatively simple you'd have thought as dating is just going to be a gateway for fraud. And yeah, I think it sort of just shows how sort of difficult this whole sort of thing has become.
Yeah, no question about it. And I'm sure that over the coming months, we're going to see a lot more news coming from some of our favourite anti-fraud providers, like Avena, like Impello, like MCP, whereby they're going to have to tackle this image of deep fakes because, of course, the telemedia industry is now it's always been about the changing media landscape, but certainly in terms of traffic sources, where do we advertise our VAS services, and can we keep those channels clean? And I know that particular article mentions TikTok as being particularly vulnerable. And interestingly enough, we're actually talking to our friends at the TikTok meetup to be providing a number of sessions, specialist sessions, in Marbella on the 5th and 7th of October, highlighting what a great potential channel this is for advertisers of MVAS services. But again, on the flip side of that, it's going to be for sure an issue that whilst this does look like a very, very attractive channel, it is also going to be in the spotlight and very vulnerable to bad actors that are using deep fake images, of course, as well. And that will, of course, have a knock-on effect for any advertisers or merchants that are using those channels. So this is a really important area that I think needs to be monitored very closely. And I would urge anyone that is in the marketing space or the affiliate marketing space that it's pushing MVAS services and premium content, that they certainly should be in Marbella on the 5th and 7th of October to get a full update and find out exactly what's going on with regards to combating some of the areas that will threaten the industry and threaten some of these fantastic potential marketing channels. If you are keen to hear from us again, please do remember to like, subscribe, and send us a comment. We love to hear from you, and we will reference that, and it helps us to understand where your priorities lie in the future. So let's move on to the second topic of the episode, which is how we secure payments. This might sound a little bit dry. We're going to be talking about DCI PSS version 4. But this is very important because it references how payment companies need to be compliant by the 31st of March. Particularly with regards to protecting their customers against phishing attacks. So, do you want to talk us a little bit more, talk us through this in a little bit more detail?
I could go into a little bit more detail. I can't say I'm an expert in PCI DSS compliance, the payment card industry data security standards, but I think anyone who works in the business who takes credit card payments will be aware of PCI DSS. It's just the sort of set of standards that you need to sort of meet to handle and process card payments. Like all these things, they get updated. The latest version is coming out. As you say, it's implemented on the 31st of March, which is, I believe, just a few days away at the time of recording. And in it this time is a particular sort of request or requirement to implement a thing called DMARC, which is the domain-based message authentication reporting and confirmation regulations. Now, this all sounds very dry, and I am not an expert, but my understanding of it is this is a compliance issue that you have to have in place that protects your web address and therefore email addresses from being used by other people. Now, what that means is that it's an attempt to stop scams that they hijack your business's email address. You get an email from what it really does appear to be the company you've been dealing with wanting money, but of course it's not. So it's quite complicated how DMARC works. There's a link in the story to sort of that will give you a sort of explainer of what it is, how it works, how you do it, and all that kind of thing. But essentially, it's this idea that the companies who are taking card payments, which let's face it, is almost probably all of the people running services that we deal with, take card payments alongside everything else, need to be very much on top of this in an attempt to try and counteract this idea of people using your email address and your web domain and everything to scam and send out sort of fraudulent requests for payment.
Yeah, no, and I mean it's interesting as I alluded to earlier on that back in the day the telemedia industry really hung its hat on a very limited number of very specific payment mechanisms, but now anybody that has listened to our vodcasts or reads our magazine or newsletter or comes to our shows will realize that it's all about maximizing conversion rates and engaging consumers in as many ways as you possibly can. And that means offering the widest range of payment mechanisms. And of course, credit card now is again, deeply embedded in many or most telemedia services. Because obviously, the more ways you offer consumers to pay, the more likely you are to get paid and get on board them as customers. This particular report, as Paul mentioned, is available as a free download. And one of the shocking highlights really is that given that deadline is the 31st of March, and as Paul mentioned, we're only a few days away from that, still only 38% have actually implemented this DMARC thing thingy, which and I hate to use a pun, but it potentially means that over the next few months it's going to be lovely weather for fishing.
Mm.
So apologies for that. I don't mean to be glib, but it does sound
The
as
whole thing was just building as a vehicle for that joke.
it was. But but it is frightening if 60% of merchants and anyone that's processing credit cards have not actually implemented this. There's going to be trouble. So what is the answer? And the second story kind of points us in an interesting direction. And we're going to talk a little bit about tokenization. Now, I first really believed that telemedia service providers and aggregators and merchants were starting to use tokenization for real. In Barcelona 2024, when I started to talk to various clients that were there, I think particularly from some of the Middle Eastern areas, that were really successfully working with networks on tokenization and got some really great services up and running using tokenization as an alternative payment mechanism. The story goes consumer desire for seamless checkout, which we know is fundamental to telemedia industry strategies, along with the need for better security to drive network tokenization. Boom. So this is Juniper Research. This is from Juniper Research. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so I thought it sort of sat quite nicely with the sort of PCI DSS compliance story, and that sort of the PCI DSS sort of idea is around sort of card payments. You think, well, maybe card payments are sort of becoming not obsolete, but possibly a way around this is to look at sort of tokenization of payments, which is sort of how things like Apple Pay and Google Pay and sort of wallets work, in that the network issues a unique token for that transaction. So it's not entirely sort of unhackable, and of course, like anything that sort of purports to be secure, the hackers will come along and find a way around it. But for now, it's a more secure, and it makes for a more seamless and smooth payment. And as you say, we've seen a lot of companies, particularly in sort of developing markets, talking about these sort of kind of payments because it's easy to implement. It works really well, and I think Juniper's sort of latest study. Just points to how they see this as being, extremely successful. I mean, it's already sort of carrying $4.1 billion worth of payments in 2025. They estimate it'll be up to nearly 9 billion by 2029. So, I mean, obviously we can't hold them to that number, but it's growing. It's almost going to double in 4 years. It could well be that sort of as like these phishing attacks and card payments. It's all just a bit old world, isn't it? So maybe it's time to sort of, we're going to see more of this sort of tokenization of payments, wallets, alternative payment mechanisms, and let's not forget carrier billing can have a much higher level of security to it if it's done right and properly sort of analysed and assessed by companies like Avena and MCP. So yeah, I just thought the two things sort of together was quite interesting. There's this sort of compliance thing coming along where they have to be ready by the 31st of March. 2/3 of them aren't, and maybe that's because there is an alternative, or there are alternatives. And I think perhaps this kind of thing and fraud generally is what's going to just sort of drive the uptake of these newer technologies.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. And I would say let's file this under the telemedia alternative payments section, which has now become a regular buzzword with regards to our editorial, but also the conference content that we put together in our upcoming shows, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on. The Juniper Research Report, you can find out more, download a free sample of the report. It's called Global Network Tokenization Market 2025 to 29. You can download that right now. And I would strongly suggest you do, as I say, it comes under the umbrella heading alternative payments, and that certainly is something of a buzzword in our sector right now. And also, just as a final point, I mean, one of the reasons why the broad range of payments is so necessary, of course, is that this particular solution will probably only work in developed markets where there's already high credit card penetration, which is all very well and good. But what happens if you're in the other developing markets, and hence the need for alternatives? But there you go. Well, thank you very much for that. And remember, if you are interested in alternative payment mechanisms and where that's all going, and if you are selling digital services and value-added services and premium content, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below, because you will get much more of our content focusing on this area. And of course, you will also be able to subscribe to our newsletter and our magazine. Right, finally, Paul, having talked about AI and fraud and dating and payments, of course, the whole value chain of the telemedia industry will be coming together at the upcoming World Telemedia Shows 2025. We've put 8.1 live Barcelona to bed now, and we now look towards the two biggest events of the year, 3 day events that we're running in Dubai on the 11th to 13th of May at the Marriott Palm Jumeirah, which is an absolutely stunning hotel. There are a few discounted rooms available, so I would urge anyone that's thinking of coming to the show, please to get those rooms booked up as soon as possible. Apart from the fact it's a wonderful venue, it's very convenient to be living and sleeping in the venue where the show's going on. But Dubai will be a little bit warm, and if you are somewhere close by, and it's walking around is not going to be a great idea, and also traffic in Dubai can be awful, so please do try and make sure you're as close to the action as possible. The second event, of course, is World Telemedia Marbella. That will be happening at the spiritual home of Telemedia, which is the Hard Rock Hotel in Marbella, and that will be happening on the 5th to the 7th of October. Paul and I are in the throes of, I wouldn't say the final throes, but the next couple of weeks are pretty crucial. If you are interested in telling your story or joining us as a thought leader in Dubai, we've got the main framework of the conference coming up, and I think it's probably it would be useful just to skim over what we feel. I mean, there are always so many issues that we would love to cover, but time and spaces are limited. But I think we've really kind of encapsulated what would be important to the regular telemedia attendees, but also recognizing the fact that by moving the event or by hosting the event in Dubai, it does give us an opportunity to bring in new attendees from areas such as South Asia, Africa, and of course the MENA region in general. So what Paul and I have decided to do is we'll be running four kind of keynote sessions, which will be entitled Understanding, focusing then on MENA, Africa, South Asia, and of course India. And we've seen a lot of action from the Indian market, a lot more attendees coming from India, and a lot more sponsors and exhibitors coming from India. So that seemed to make sense to us. If you are interested, or if you know a lot about those markets and feel that we absolutely must be hearing from you or talking to you, please get in touch as soon as you can. We're also very happy once again to have teamed up with the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, our friends at MEF, and they're going to be actually hosting two focus sessions. One which will be focused on advertising for MVAS services, and the other one will be talking more specifically about monetization of sports content. And I remember, Paul, when I first reported from Telecom World the Telecom Middle East. Was it? I can't
Mm.
remember what it's even. I
Yeah,
can't even
yeah.
remember. It was
I think
Telecom
it was
World Middle
telecoms.
East.
Yes, let's
Uh,
call it that. But yes, I
We are
remember it
now
well.
we are now replacing in a big way. There was quite a lot of interest from those networks with regards to sports content, which is huge in the MENA region, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a focus of governments across the Middle East to promote sport. I think already particularly things like Premier League football from the UK have always been very popular in the region as well. I think that sort of expanded to sort of global sort of sports. So yes, sport is very much a prime content that's consumed, particularly in the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly.
I think sort of when you look at some of the other markets that you talk about that we're focusing on, such as South Asia and India, are also popular. I think in India, a lot of it is to do with music and film, particularly. But yeah, the sports side of things is sort of universal. And yeah, as you say, we're working with MEF to bring a really interesting looking session actually together about sort of sports content in the
Mm.
region.
And interestingly, we use broad terms like sport and, as you just said, film. But of course, the key really is then to understand the very sort of granular nature of each one of
Mm,
those, not those continents, but in those countries within those continents.
yeah,
Because there might be certain countries where and I think we talked about this before in India, and I think the number one sport is nowhere near football. It's I think something called Babati is in the top five. So if
yeah.
you're looking to enter those markets, you better know what the locals are after, and World Telemedia is a place to find that out. The other sessions, of course, we'll be covering. We mentioned earlier marketing new traffic sources, the continual challenges faced by marketeers and merchants by this changing media landscape, which is a phrase that we've reignited from the 90s. And we mentioned talking about things like social media, TikTok. These channels are now very much on the agenda for advertisers and publishers and merchants in the telemedia sector. There's going to be some specialist features on social media, how to work with Google, obviously, and affiliate marketing in general, which again, is crucial and very important to be able to see the whites of their eyes, because there's the it's a bit like a dark art. There's some aspects of affiliate marketing you really don't want to go anywhere near, and there's some absolutely fantastic areas of affiliate marketing, and we'd like to think that we showcase the fantastic parts with media. So that's important. Obviously, we will, of course, be running several deep dive sessions covering DCB and alternative payments, wallets, and everything in between, and possibly even some tokenization might even fit in there, Paul. But that's that side of thing. And finally, again, just a sort of a general shout out. We do feel like there's some opportunities to do some product demos. If you've got a good story to tell, if you've got some exciting platforms out there that you'd like to really showcase, we do have a separate space that we've set aside for individual companies to really show off their wares, and potentially also do some specific country update specials, which we think would be quite useful given the relocation or the location of the next event. Paul, in terms of conference and conference content, I know, as I mentioned, we haven't got too much. We'd like to be talking to people in the next sort of 10 days, really, to start getting serious.
Yeah,
Any sort of
it's
real
all
gaps
underway.
that you'd like to fill?
Well, I mean, as you say, I want to hear from anyone who's got an interesting story to tell around it. I think, in light of what we've been talking about on other podcasts and other episodes, I'm intrigued to find out more about dating, particularly in the different regions. I think the things that are going to be particularly interesting to get into is payments, because obviously there's a groundswell around DCB in all of those regional markets that you mentioned, but I think also they're a hotbed for alternative payments, and I'm interested to see how the two work together, there's an overlap, how that can fit together. So it's those sorts of things I think we're interested in. Anyone with good data. I think people with good and interesting and new ideas around content, because obviously that's the thing that drives all this forward. What sort of content is out there, what's popular. And I think as well, this as keeps coming up in the past few telemedia events, is this sort of idea of like long form content, short form content, educational content, how it all fits together. Like, how do you create a content strategy that involves the right proportion of the right kinds of content for the markets you're working in? And as you say, we've generalized a bit with Africa and Middle East. Each individual country therein is its own market, has its own sort of peculiarities and particularities. So it'd be good to hear from as many people as possible to get their views on each of those country markets. So that's what I'm after at the moment. The conference is taking shape. We should, in the next week or two, or 10 days probably next week, start to have names, so really sort of detailed idea of presentations up there. We'll probably talk about them in more detail in our next podcast. So yeah, it's all taking shape. Yeah, but always open to hear from people with new, different ideas, and any ideas around the things that you've heard us talking about on our podcasts.
Yeah, no, and I would thank you for that. And I would also, of course, add that I think it's sort of implied that in every single session we run now, we'll have some sort of reference to security, anti-fraud, and the role of AI. I don't feel like AI is now going to be a session on its own, because
No,
everybody wants to know, what the benefits are, but also what the threats are, and how it's going to impact, whether it's payments, whether it's content, whether it's marketing, whether it's fraud. I think it goes without saying that there'll be a continual string of AI conversations going through all of that, cutting through all of that. So, listen, we've taken up too much of everyone's time. If you are interested in receiving more information and you would like to see us again, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. If you'd like to get more information about World Telemedia, please go to wtevent.com and remember that you can subscribe and sign up to our newsletters and our magazines by going to telemediaonline.co.uk. And we would love to add you to our database and mailing list, sorry, and keep you fully up to date with everything that's going on in the world of telemedia. So until next time, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for your time, Paul.
Thanks for yours as always. It's
Back
been
to
a
work.
pleasure.
Back to
And
work,
back
mate.
to work.
See you soon. Bye bye.
See you soon, mate.